Hello, everybody. As Diane said, my name is Nicole DeMello, and I am a social ecological systems advisor on TNC's Conservation in Partnership with Indigenous Peoples and Local Communities team. I'm speaking to you today from the traditional territories of the Manahoac peoples, which is also known as the state of Virginia in the United States. I'm going to speak to you today about the Conservation Social Science Partnership, or ConSoSci for short, and some of the work that the partnership has completed and is planning. Conservation is a social endeavor. It's impossible to speak about the conservation of natural resources without including the role that people have and continue to play in resource use, management, protection, and in some cases, degradation. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the ConSoSci partnership, followed by some lessons learned from some of the research we've conducted as a group. Finally, I'll let you know how these findings are influencing the work of the partnership and what we have planned in the future. So the Conservation Social Science Partnership is a group of conservation NGOs, researchers, and social science practitioners who came together in late 2019 to address critical gaps in social science capacity, as well as implementation and accessibility in conservation. We felt a partnership was needed to share our lessons learned, to leverage our diverse expertise, to avoid duplicating our efforts, and to collectively make progress on the field application of conservation social sciences. So our mission is simple: to promote, facilitate, and coordinate the use of effective and ethical social science, data collection practices, and analysis to inform conservation decision-making and action. And by doing this, we envision a world where nature and people thrive together. Our work encompasses three main components. We promote greater literacy in social science methods and ethics among conservation practitioners who currently use or want to apply the social sciences to conservation challenges in the field. We also develop tools to improve the collection, management, and analysis of conservation social science data. And finally, we help practitioners learn to apply approaches and tools from the social sciences. So to this end, we are building a community around these efforts through the establishment first of our website, ConSoSci.org. That is ConSoSci.org. So the capacity building needs survey was prioritized due to a gap in our understanding of what the conservation community needed insofar as social science support. The goal of the survey was ultimately to determine what the Conservation Social Science Partnership could do to help fill those gaps. We circulated a survey to conservation practitioners and academics between September and December of 2020. We had about 90 responses, and if you're one of the people who responded, we wanted to take some time to thank you again for your efforts in answering the survey. So into some of the first results. These three graphs show the respondent profile by organization, role, and location. So you can see most respondents worked at a nonprofit organization in the US in a research capacity. Most organizations at which respondents worked followed ethics guidelines for the social sciences. However, it's notable that across institutions, answers of no or I don't know ranges anywhere from 10 to 25%, which is substantial, and a quarter of the respondents didn't respond. So this signaled to us an opportunity to help increase the use of ethical guidelines in social science research as one of the things we might prioritize. While the types of social science methods used were fairly evenly distributed, semi-structured interviews and questionnaires were most frequently used. I don't think that should be surprising. Of all respondents, which is, as a reminder, consisted of conservation professionals and academics, 81% reported that they are currently using social science methods in their work. So the people that design data collection tools are often the same as those who implement them in the field, and that's about half the time. Interestingly, while most respondents reported being located in the United States, the data they collect is most often from Africa, followed by Latin America. Most respondents that have received training in the social sciences did so during their schooling, with a lesser percentage having received training at work. The most frequently cited training topics covered analysis, methods, workshops, interviews, and ethics, just to name a few. Respondents identified several reasons why social science is not currently being used in conservation, with a lack of skills, knowledge, time, and a lack of prioritization by the organization rising to the top. Most respondents said it would be very or extremely useful to receive training in social science. However, lack of time, resources, and knowledge are the main barriers to engaging in capacity building efforts. Field staff, followed by project managers, were identified as those who would benefit most from training through online instructor-led or in-person instructor-led training as the preference. So in summary, although most respondents currently use various methods of social science, they feel like capacity building on those would still be useful. There's an opportunity to strengthen the use of ethical guidelines in conservation social science. And by providing online, free, and open source training materials, ConSoSci can begin to address some of the main challenges in using social science and conservation, such as lack of resources and knowledge. Though other engagement strategies and partnerships with organizational leadership and funders will be needed to try to influence prioritization by these groups, as well as allocation of time and staff. So as a response to the results of this survey, one of the first things we set about doing in 2021 was to get an understanding of the world of existing social science training resources currently available and what gaps existed that we might prioritize filling. So in the assessment, we focused on low cost or free training resources for the application of social science approaches in conservation. In the matrix on the right-hand side with the various colors, we have a visual representation of the inclusion set with the categories of resources on the left-hand side and the various assessment criteria across the top. We identified 446 resources in 5 different languages, with the majority of the search effort conducted in English, and so most of those results were in English. Most resources were open access, and half of the resulting resources were not conservation specific, which isn't necessarily a problem. Some of it is cross use. Let me see if I can back up. There we go. We found a lack of resources on logistics for implementing social science research in the field, communication, and impact monitoring and evaluation. So some of the main takeaways of the gap analysis are listed on this slide. which ultimately shaped the strategic planning of ConSoSci on what support delivery we prioritize. So in short, there are many tools available, but they're generally hard to find or hard to access. So to help with this, we've developed a searchable, filterable library of resources to aid in access to the resources uncovered during the gap analysis. Conservation social science has unique ethical challenges. And so to aid in navigating these challenges and to help fill the ethical guidelines gap, ConSoSci is developing guidance for conservation organizations to create their own ethical review boards. Most of the resources found were in English. This could be due in part to the search methodology, but to aid in coverage, ConSoSci is translating some of the higher quality resources into various languages. Many social science methods are too difficult and complex to learn from text-only resources. So to remedy this, ConSoSci is developing more interactive modes of training and facilitating collaborations between conservation practitioners and trained social scientists. And finally, a few resources comprehensively cover the practical implementation of conducting social research. And as such, ConSoSci is currently contemplating developing a social science primer for beginners. So the ConSoSci partnership hopes that by providing online, free, and open source training materials, we can address some of the main challenges in using social science and conservation. So on our website, you can find a training library where we will have links to the free and low-cost training materials from the gap analysis, as well as technical manuals developed specifically to address training gaps. There's a form library, which contains field-tested survey templates, many already loaded into Kobo Toolbox for a variety of topics salient to conservation practitioners, available for download and modification as needed for your particular context and setting. And finally, the link to our YouTube channel, where we house training videos for all kinds of topics, including an intro to Kobo Toolbox for tablet-based data collection by the one and only Diane, who is on this call today. And finally, so looking ahead, some of the activities that our team is working on currently, and some of which we've already mentioned, include an interactive decision tree on when and why one might select a particular social science approach, method, or tool, ethics guidance for NGOs collecting data from people, translation of some key resources that we found in our review, continuing to build out resources in the forms library, as well as other training materials. And finally, we're looking at facilitating more events and discussions to raise awareness about the importance of the social sciences for conservation outcomes. So thank you so much for taking the time to learn about the Conservation Social Science Partnership. Hopefully from this presentation, you have a better understanding of how we're working collaboratively to promote greater literacy of the social sciences and conservation practice, to develop tools to more effectively manage social science data collection and analysis in the field, and to build capacity among field practitioners to apply approaches and tools from the social sciences to improve conservation outcomes. So we would encourage you to learn more by exploring our website at ConSoSci.org. Feel free to use any of the resources available on the site for your own work. And if you would like to know more or are interested in getting involved or possibly collaborating on development of some of these materials that we mentioned, or joining ConSoSci, please contact us at info@consosci.org.